Welcome to WagerTalk TV. I am Kelly Stewart here with an extended version of TNA for the Super Bowl. I'm joined by John Ryan of SportsMemo.com and, of course, Ralph Michaels of WagerTalk.com. Welcome in, gentlemen. Let's see if we can't find our listeners some really great trends and angles to maybe help them win a couple more bets and even a couple against their buddies this Super Bowl Sunday. Ralph, I'd like you to start off by talking about the WagerTalk Super Bowl guide and where our viewers can find it.
Well, Kelly, I just took a lot of mishmashed information, put it together, and it's available for free on my homepage. That's wt.buzz/RM. What can you look for? You'll have prop results for the last 12 years. You'll have Super Bowl quarter-by-quarter scoring the last 20 years. My first quarter and first half logs for the Bengals and the Rams for the entire season. A stat compare for the playoffs and postseason. Year-to-date stats and playoff stats for both. And for those that like squares in the Super Bowl, I broke down every square combination over the last 10 years. And how about this for a surprise? If you get 7-7, you're likely to be happy. Well, 7-7 hasn't hit in the last 10 years, and 7-7 has not hit in the Super Bowl for the last 19 years.
That is awesome stuff, Ralph. I love these prop results for the last 12 years. Can you point out a few, maybe a little anomalies for us?
Well, I picked out 4 that have had a very positive record, and I lean with this Super Bowl. How about the team that scores last to win the game? How often in the regular season are we watching a game and we get backdoored with a minute to go and we lose our bet when backing a favor? Well, in the Super Bowl, in the last 12 years, the team to score last has won the game. That's right. No backdoor covers in the last 12 years. The yes and that's like minus 155. It used to be minus 110s, but because of the results the last few years, it has moved up. I know a lot of people like to cash early. That's why some fools bet the coin toss. But a lot of people, even some sharps, bet will there be a score the first 6 minutes of the game. Sometimes it's 6 minutes, sometimes it's 6.5, sometimes it's 7, depending on the total and depending on which book you're using. But any of those, in the last 5 years, there have been no score in the first 7 minutes of the last 5 Super Bowls. So be it 6 minutes, 6.5, or 7, all 5 have been a no score in that first segment of the game. One that really jumps out at me is longest TD. They give you 2 options. Option 1 is the pass, which is a favorite. Option 2 is other. So that would be a run, a punt return, a kick return, a blocked punt, or a blocked punt. So the longest TD is minus 145. The other, a rush or return, is plus 115. The other has hit 3 straight years, 5 out of 6, and 9 out of 12. You're getting a prop that has cashed 5 out of 6 and 9 out of 12 years at a plus price. And the last one, this is one I lean with as well, over 3.5 sacks. John will talk more about sacks in a minute. But over 3.5 sacks, average price about minus 140, has actually hit 6 of the last 7 years.
Great stuff, Ralph. Let's welcome in John Ryan. John, I'd like to chat some team trends as we head into Super Bowl 56.
Well, I have to admit, a lot of my trends I'm going to tell you right now came from Ralph's resource, and I encourage everybody to get that resource and use it. It generates ideas, and I go into my database and I pull out some information, not always usable, but we're going to be talking about some of the good stuff that I was able to pull out of it. I believe the last 7 coin flips that the team won and deferred, that team lost the Super Bowl. So it'd be interesting to see if Cincinnati wins the toss, whether they take the ball and try to score first. Just a little food for thought. The Bengals are 8-1 against the spread when playing a team with a winning road record since week 8. Bengals are 6-0 against the spread when facing a team that has completed 64% or more of their passes on the season. Bengals are 12-3-1 against the number when facing a defense Like the Rams, it's allowing an average of 235 or more passing yards per game in games played over the last 2 seasons, regular season and playoffs combined. And now, Kelly and Ralph, I have a stunner. I had no clue that this was even in the database, but here it is. The Bengals are 17-1 to the under since 1989 when on the road and facing an offense that is averaging 375 or more yards per game in games played in the second half of each of those seasons. The last 3 seasons, it's a perfect 4-0 to the under. That's pretty wild, in my opinion. The Rams counter that trend, though. They are 6-0 to the over off a home win this season. The Rams are 3-7 against the number of the last 10 games after accumulating less than 90 rushing yards in their previous game. The Rams are 2-5 against the number of the last 7 following an ATS loss. They're also 2-5 against the number in their last 7 playoff games as a favorite. McVay, we always hear how great he is. Well, there's some trends that aren't so great that I found. McVay is 11-25 against the number after 2 or more consecutive wins as the coach of the Rams. 4-13, which is borderline horrid, after 3 or more consecutive wins. And he's 9-1, though. That's the good part, after a dominating performance in which he held the ball for 34 or more minutes and had 24 or more first downs.
Wow. Lots of great TNA there from John. Ralph, I know that there are several parameters that point to a team with the poorer record having success in the Super Bowl. Can you please speak to this?
Well, I'm going to give you 2 records, Kelly, and they're both like wow numbers. But I do want to preface that they're basically coming from the same data set. Number 1 are teams with the lower win percentage, and number 2, the lower seed. Well, I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times, if your conference has a lower win percentage, yes, you're playing another conference, but you're likely the lower seed as well. So don't treat these as 2 separate numbers and say, wow, they're a combined 26-3. It really is just one data set. I will say this is the second time in 16 years that a number 1 seed has not been in the Super Bowl. So that has been a rarity. The lower seed, like the Bengals, have gone 11-3 straight up, 12-2 ATS. And the team with the lower win percentage, again, like the Bengals, 11-4 straight up and 14-1 against the spread.
John, on that note, let's talk about those Super Bowl underdogs over a field goal.
Absolutely, Kelly. The last 20 Super Bowls, underdogs using the money line of plus 150 or greater are an outstanding 5-1 straight up and a perfect 6-0 against the spread. Plus, if the dogs of 4 or more points, we're basically taking the plus 150 and making it a plus 4, have earned a highly profitable 7-5 straight up record and an amazing 10-2 against the number for 83.3% winning bets.
Wow, great stuff there. Ralph, I know your Super Bowl guide has a stat compare for the regular season and the playoffs. What other stat profiles do you like to look at?
Well, when we get to playoffs, Kelly, one of the most important things I look at are common opponents, or I want to just mention bowls quickly, winning teams in college football. So you're comparing apples to apples. Well, these teams have played 8 games against common foes. Cincinnati went 6-3 straight up, and 6-3 straight up, and 5-4 ATS plus 657 yards in those games. The Rams 7-4 straight up, only 2-9 against the spread, plus 206 yards. But like with any numbers we look at, we need to remember this. You look at the Rams, and I'm not saying this because I want you to bet the Rams, but you look at the Rams stat profile for the season. Let's remember, they had Hall of Famer Beckham, Hall of Famer Von Miller, both mid-season. So this team playing now is not the same team that had these stat profiles, but again, always worth looking at all the data.
Always worth looking at all the data. Speaking of data, John, I would love for you to give some of our listeners some other stats or maybe performance indicators that you like to look at during the Super Bowl.
Well, I like looking at time of possession as one of them, Kelly. And time of possession, obviously, if you average more than 30 minutes per game over the course of the regular season, you're controlling the line of scrimmage and you have performed well in scoring drives and you keep the ball and you move the chains better than your opponents. So teams with time of possession of greater than 30 minutes per game and are a dog of 3.5 or more points in the Super Bowl have gone 6-4 straight up, 8-2 against a number with a 4-6 over/under result. That supports the Bengals, obviously, who averaged 30 minutes and 39 seconds in time of possession. And if you wanted to know, the Rams weren't so good in that category. They only averaged 28 minutes and 49 seconds this season. The second one I like looking at is first downs. And again, this ties into what I just said about sustaining drives. And that is so key in the Super Bowl to move the chains, keep the other offense off the field, and then get in the red zone and score. So the team that made more first downs in their playoff games, is that an advantage? Well, it actually can be. The team with the fewer made first downs has the advantage in the playoffs and has gone 13-7 straight up, 12-8 against a number for 60% winning bets. And the over-under is 9-11. So I think what this is telling us is that the market sometimes overshoots with the favorite because after all, what does the public do in the Super Bowl? The favorite, well, they must be the better team. Therefore, I'm going to put down my $50 on that favorite. And I think we've seen historically here that more times than not, the market overshoots what the real value is. So the third one is sacks. And we've heard all about the Rams defensive front and how good they are. We're going to learn something here too. The team that has had the fewest sacks of their opponents in the playoff games leading up to the Super Bowl are 10-7 straight up, 11-6 against the number for 65% winning bets, 8-9 has been the over/under. 3 Super Bowls had both teams record the same number of sacks during that time period. Now, plus, if the team had fewer sacks and is installed as the underdog, has seen them go 5-5 straight up. And think about that. The money line, you go 5-5 with a plus 175 average money line, you're a pretty happy camper over the last 10 seasons. More importantly, 7-3 against the spread for 70% winning bets, including 4-6 over/under mark. The Rams have had fewer playoff sacks than the Bengals, despite ranking 5th best in the NFL regular season with an 8% sack percentage rate.
That is really interesting considering that Joe Burrow has been on his butt a lot this playoffs. Ralph, I'm going to kick it back to you. Speaking of that, since he won as a dog and was outgained versus Kansas City, do you think that's worth noting?
Well, let's look at the data and then we decide if there's something we can pull out of it. You know, Super Bowl dogs of 3 or more, often underdog win, a very positive 11-3-1. We have solid momentum. We were the underdog. We were overlooked. We're going to be the dog again in the Super Bowl, so they've done very well. When you look at teams that were outgained in the championship game, they have actually gone 5-4 straight up, 6-3 against the spread. And as an underdog, if you got outgained in the AFC or NFC championship game, you have cashed 4 of 5, hitting 80% against the number.
Wow. God, it's so hard for me not to want to bet the side. Pre-kick, if you will. John, I mentioned all week I was going to wait because live betting is the future. And I know that you are the king of live betting over at SportsMemo.com. But man, Ralph's making a really interesting case there for this underdog. It's got my fingers itching to maybe make a bet here. But I would love to hear where you think we need to be live betting the Super Bowl, any situations that come up for us.
Well, I think I'll start with some trends based on wire-to-wire victories, for example. There's only been 4 in the last 20 Super Bowls where the team went wire-to-wire. So what I'm creating here is the proof that there's volatility in the scoring in the Super Bowl. Your team that you bet on, whether it's the Rams or the Bengals, at some point are likely to be losing in the game. There have been 15 Super Bowls over the last 20 that saw come from behind wins at some point during the game they were trailing. Favorites that trailed at some point happened 8 times, and obviously they came back to wins. They're 8-0 straight up, but they covered the number 5-3, which surprised me, with an over-under that was even 4-4. And 7 times over those 20 years, the dog was the one that came from behind to win. They covered the spread as well since they were the dogs, so they were 7-0. And there have been 4 champions that trailed by 10 or more points. So we don't have to go very far in history to remember Atlanta against the Patriots and that dramatic comeback by Tom Brady in that matchup. That's the one that is most recent for a double-digit team to come back and actually win the Super Bowl. So there's going to be opportunities in game and live game betting. And when I was on the WagerTalk Today show that you were on today, Kelly, I actually was talking to Teddy and Steve Merrill, and I'm planning on not betting the game pre-flop and just watching the game, see how it unfolds. But I will have a plan, and that's the whole key to this live in-game betting. You can't go into it without a plan that is disciplined. You never use live in-game betting to hedge what you think is a bad bet, because then you have the possibility of losing both, and that's kind of foolish. But in this matchup, I think I probably will go 50% pre-flop, so I'll take my regular 5% wager, put half of it down pre-flop, and then I'll look to add at better prices. So if you've ever done it, it's gonna feel really strange to be betting your team again when that team is losing. And it'll happen right after the other team scores. Another factor in the Super Bowl is if you bet on let's say you bet on the Rams and the Bengals start out 10-0, 13-0, or 14-0. So 2 consecutive scores. And you like the Rams before the game started, there's no reason not to like them again. And you're going to get that price, double-digit lead by the Bengals. You're going to get the Rams at possibly plus money, like plus 2.5, plus 3.5 is where I'm estimating that. So you have to sell into the strength and buy into the weakness. And it happens a lot in the Super Bowl. Teams that trailed at the half, 4-13 straight up, 6-11 against the spread, 8-9 over under, but trailed at the half and were tied. So tied scores at the half and trailing, 8-12 against the spread, 8-12 over under. So it's not a complete wipeout. It's not 0-12, for example. There's a lot of comebacks in the second half. And then favorites that were tied after the third quarter, and there's only been a few, 2-0 straight up and 1-1 against the spread. So not much there, but favorites trailing after the third quarter. 3 of the 8 games they've come back. They went 3-5 straight up, and against the spread 5-3 over under. 3-5 straight up and against the spread are favorites trailing after the third quarter. So keep in mind that's based on the betting closing lines. It's not the in-game. So when you have an in-game bet with your favorite trailing, the price tag's going to be, for the Rams to be trailing going into the fourth in this Super Bowl, they'll be pick 'em, maybe even +3, +4. And there's a very high probability that they're just going to mount a comeback that's going to make the game very exciting at the end, and you'll have a winning ticket with the Rams. So I hope I explained that, well, that it makes sense, and that's my plan.
Hey, Kel.
Absolutely. That's
I jumped into the database while John was talking, just to give you guys some ideas of numbers. I took NFL home favorites. Again, Rams are at home. I don't know if that's really the same home edge. NFL home favorites since 2015 that are down by 7 or more at the half. So if you're an NFL favorite of a field goal or more, you're down by 7.5. You've won 32 of 124 games. You've won 25.8%. So keep that number in mind if you're looking to live bet and the Rams happen to be down over 25% of the time. That favorite that is down by 7 or more at halftime has come back and won the game.
All right, Ralph, on that note, can you give me your best prop bet for the Super Bowl?
All my props are 1% and 2%. I actually thought about making this more. Kelly, a couple questions ago, you said Joe Burrow has been on his ass. He was sacked, 9 times against Tennessee? Well, what's happened? We've got a lot of quick hitters now. This Rams D-line will look to get pressure. They're going to have to run screens. They're going to have to run dump-offs. Joe Mixon over 25.5 receiving yards is minus 115. Mixon's first 5 games of the season, 8 receptions for 31 yards, non-existent in the passing game. Joe Mixon, his last 5 games, 6 receptions, 70 yards, 7 receptions, 40 yards, 4 receptions, 48 yards, 6 receptions, 51 yards, 3 receptions, 27 yards. This may end up being my biggest Super Bowl bet this season.
Love it. That's going to be a great one. I expect a lot from both running backs in this one. But we will see how Joe Mixon over 25.5 receiving yards does as well. John, who is your favorite free prop play for this Super Bowl?
Well, if it's okay, I'm going to give you 2. I totally love the field goal situation in this matchup, and I think that is an opportunity to bet over number of field goals, especially with McPherson. Just think of it, anytime the Bengals cross that 50-yard line, they're going to be within range. And if the Rams hold them and it's a 55-yarder, they're not going to be afraid to let him go out there and kick it between the uprights. He's 11 out of 13 during the regular season from beyond 50 yards. So I'm choosing to play the prop bet over 7.5 points with McPherson scoring that amount. And that's minus 110. So the VIG is very, very favorable there. And then, of course, I can't resist the temptation, and Kelly and Ralph, it'll probably be pizza money that I'll put down the drain, but Jamar Chase to score the first touchdown at plus 900. I can't refuse it. I know it probably should be like plus 1,500 in reality of probabilities of that occurs. But at plus 900, I can't help myself. And anytime TDs minus 110. And the last TD, if he scores, is plus 900. So those will be, 0.5 units, a little bit more than pizza money, but those 2, well, actually 4, I like quite a bit.
Great stuff from John. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at John Ryan Sports 1. And of course, make sure you're following Mr. Ralph Michaels as well at Cal Sports LV. Great stuff from these two always. Make sure you head over to the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Check out all of our other videos up for the Super Bowl.